Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So if you didn't see my last video, then I recommend you go check it out. It's basically telling you why I went from this YouTube channel for so long, like why I disappeared, and now why I'm back. So yeah, this video is going to be entirely about creating a fighter for my tabletop board game fighting game. So sort of the aim of this fighting game is to simulate and mimic games like Super Smash Bros. Mainly, but also the fundamentals from like Tekken, Street Fighter, Guilty Gear, and to bring that to a board game and to make it feel like a fighting game despite you just using cards and it's on a board and you've got little miniature fighters and stuff like that. So that's kind of the aim. So far we have 3 fighters in the game. We have a grappler, which focuses entirely on sort of like waiting for fighters to get really close to you or to pull them in to get close to you and then to grab them and do loads of damage whilst they are there, so to sort of like punish people for getting too close to you. Then we have the zoner, who really loves staying away from other fighters and doing damage from a distance. You don't really want to get too close to fighters because then you'll get punished. And then finally we have the rushdown, who's all about getting in there, running in, doing loads of damage, and mixing up gameplay with different sort of techniques. So these 3 fighters sort of create a triangle of balance. So the grappler is really good against the rushdown, because once the rushdown's in there, the grappler can do loads of damage to them. The grappler is really bad against the zoner, so the zoner can do loads of damage from a distance with the grappler, and the idea is for the vast majority of gameplay, the grappler will really struggle getting close to that zoner to do damage. And then finally, the rushdown is really good against the zoner, because the rushdown can close that gap really quickly against the zoner will struggle to get away, and the rushdown can do loads of damage before the zoner can do damage. So that's our triangle of balancing, like sort of the fundamentals of the game, and then the rest of the fighters are sort of going to like deviate from that. And what a lot of fighting games do is they also include a all-rounder character, a character which is sort of good against all these fighters, but there is another fighter which will be better against a particular fighter. An all-rounder, like even the name just sounds boring, you know. So I'm like, what can I do differently that sort of encompasses what an all-rounder is, but isn't as boring? And the answer to that was a stance character. Now, what a stance character is it's sort of a character which is similar to an all-rounder, is it's not the best at everything, but the difference is that depending on which stance you are currently in as that fighter, you can sort of get to that potential that other fighters can get to. So for example, there could be like a close range attack stance. In that case, they will be almost as good as a grappler in close range, and then they can switch up stance to be ranged or maybe rush down to be able to get away once they've gotten in. So if you actually play a stance character really well, even though they're not the best at everything, you can sort of get the best of all worlds and really take advantage of that stance mechanic. So that's something which I'm going to be attempting to get into the game today and get it play tested. So what you're going to be seeing is me designing the character, and then you're going to be seeing me do some play testing with it and just see how it really works, because stances is a completely new mechanic for the game, so we'll just see what happens. So for a fighting game, when it comes to creating any sort of new fighter, what I love to do is I love to open up Google Sheets where all the other data for every single card in the game is on. And I just like to jot down a few basic rules for each fighter and then just start coming up with different sort of cards and seeing what works, because I've got sort of this like intuition about the economy and the balance of the game now. So I don't really have to think too much about what cards should have what initiative, that sort of thing. The only thing which I actually calculate is the average initiative of each fighter, because it's supposed to start off with the zoner having the lowest initiative, the grappler having the highest initiative, and then the rest sort of fall in between somewhere. With this stance character, I wanted it to be very similar to the rushdown, just so we have that balance between the 4 characters. And basically, if you don't know what initiative is it's the order in which cards are revealed and activated in the game. So the lower the initiative, the earlier they are activated. This is supposed to simulate sort of the speed, the pace, and the reactions of each fighter. So for the stance character, one of the cool things is that depending on which stance you are in, cards act differently. So first of all, I had to come up with the different stances. So I came up with a close combat stance, a long range stance, and a movement stance, which sort of encompasses all the other 3 fighters. The zoner is all about long range, the grappler is all about close range, and the rushdown is all about movement. So this is really a all-rounder character. Like, depending on which stance you're in, you can be almost as good as every other fighter in the game at that particular thing. But you get to choose what you want to be good at with almost every single card you play. So after going through this in the spreadsheet, I then open it up in Photoshop and I create the cards that I have to implement into Tabletop Simulator, ready for the playtest. Another interesting thing of note that you have to take into account when looking at the cards in this game is that actions are done from top down. So it actually matters where the actions are on the card. So the action at the top would go first, then the next line down, the next action would happen, and then so on and so on. The only time when this is different is when a card has mix-up in italics on the bottom. So today I also did a playtesting session with my friends Lewis and Alex, and I got them to play every single fighter up against the stance fighter just to see what they thought and just basically give feedback on how they like the fighter. So what do you guys think then? Go on.
On what?
About the game.
Yeah, I still like it.
I like this new character.
That's good.
It's not changed from last time for me. I just still like it. It's a fun game.
That's good. Just the zoner needs some spice put into it.
Needs some spice because the deck just feels a bit sad when you lose your weapon. There needs to be more ways to get your weapon back. And you just... That's sort of it. I mean, for a gameplay perspective, that's sort of it. I'm excited. I want to see, like, more... I want to see special moves.
Yeah. So, like, when you're playing, though, you're, like, invested and engaged in, like, what cards to pick and, like...
Yeah.
Cool. What do you think, Alex? Any thoughts?
I think the green deck needs working on a bit more, definitely. I do like the stance character. I'm just trying to think of like maybe different ways that you could change it, but I'm not sure. So like the fact how it's got like close range, like far range, and then movement.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have a card which is like just those colours, and then it's like whatever stance you're in, you have to do that.
Okay, yeah. So like, it'll definitely make use of whatever stance you're in.
Yeah. Rather than it's like, oh, you have to rotate, or you have to do this.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, your blue move 4 forward, your green attack 3 away, your red do 2 damage in front of you. That could be like the ultimate or something.
Yeah, I think that'll be good. I'll do that. That's a good idea. Right, okay, so based on that playtesting session which I just had, the feedback for the stance character was really, really good. It was on par with the rushdown character, which I designed probably about a week ago now, which is good because it seems like with every fighter I design, the feedback is sort of more and more positive, which means that I'm sort of like hitting my stride with what each fighter needs to do and what is kind of like fun in this game. Because with the first 2 fighters, which was the grappler and the zoner, which is what I started off with, I was kind of really finding the fun still. I didn't really know what was fun about my game idea. And that actually still reflects, because what I did is I got my playtesters, Lewis and Alex, to playtest every single fighter with the stance character. And the zoner was by far the one that produced sort of the worst results in terms of just a game, because regardless of balance and regardless of matchups, even if one fighter is on paper better than the other, each game still needs to be fun and enjoyable to play. It can't just be boring for one or both players, because even if one fighter is underpowered compared to another, that still can be fun and interesting, like trying to, like, it's sort of like David and Goliath situation where you're trying to be better than your opponent. So yeah, what I'm going to do in the next video is I am going to try and make the zoner more fun. And then once I've done that, I feel like I've got a really good foundation to sort of build on and improve this game, ready for art to be implemented, which should hopefully be within the next coming months. So it's ready to be taken to UK Games Expo in June. This game will have a prototype ready and will be presented at UK Games Expo for people to get hands on, and for me to take it to the playtesting area and to get loads and loads of people's feedback on the game, which I'm really, really excited about. But you've now seen what it takes for me to design and implement a new character, and hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.